Okay, folks, free agency starts in 3 hours and 15 minutes. It's 2:45 p.m. Eastern, 11:45 a.m. Pacific. I set the time at 5:45 p.m. Eastern. Watch party Warriors fans, come join. We'll see what happens in real time with Klay, CP3, trades, anything in between. Last video before we get there, the update is CP3, if he becomes a free agent, what teams want him, we have that for you. Klay Thompson, update, if he goes to a different team, what would be the money? And we missed out on Paul George. Well, really, he didn't want to come here, I guess, by not opting in. What other teams are interested in potentially trading for the Warriors? What players are out there? All right, let's update you. The Warriors could shift their focus to Zach LaVine or Brandon Ingram. The options range across a spectrum of upsides, from sending out picks for Brandon Ingram to potentially acquiring one with Zach LaVine, sources said. But if no deal emerges, the Warriors indeed lose Klay Thompson, as Golden State and league personnel currently believe. The Warriors are considering this their best option. We've talked about these people. You can go ahead and check our channel. We did a full trade breakdown on Ingram and LaVine. LaVine would be a proven second scorer next to Steph. Something that we desperately need. Someone who can score when Steph's on the bench. Someone who can take the pressure off of Steph when he's on the court with him. The problem is Zach doesn't stay healthy. He does not play a lot of games. So can you trade away assets to or players or draft picks, whatever that asset may be, to get Zach and think that he'll stay healthy for you? Ingram, we know, stays relatively healthy. He's going into the last year of his contract. Can be somebody that'd be a great addition to this team. Can play out at the three-point line. Can play in the paint, mid-range. With the FIBA World Cup team last year, he was coached by Kerr, and he was a favorite. He started for Kerr. Eventually, he got put to the bench because he wasn't playing well, honestly. He could be a good fit here. Him and Steph in the pick and roll would be awesome. You can see him playing potentially anywhere from 2 through 5, more like 2 through 4. So we're going to break that down for you right here. Ingram is the most obvious trade candidate because he's set to play only. Ingram is the most obvious trade candidate because he's set to play on a $36 million expiring contract. Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer reported that Pelicans don't want to offer Ingram a mass extension and will explore trading him if no deal can be reached, but they have a steep asking price. So let's look at this really quick, just like we did with Paul George. If the Warriors were going to try to trade, we have to match the money at $36 million. That means you opt in Chris Paul, and then you send him over to the Pelicans. So you need another $6 million. Looks like could be Moody. He's at $5.8 million. That would be the easiest. Or if you want to keep Chris Paul, you don't want to keep Chris Paul, he walks in free agency, then you could do Wiggins, potentially Looney. That puts you at $34 million. And then there's going to have to be some draft picks in there. Maybe it's Wiggins and Moody and a small other player. So you don't necessarily need Chris Paul. With the Paul George trade, because it was $48 million, you really needed a $30 million. Chris Paul is not as vital to get Ingram, but if they're giving up Ingram, they're going to want some draft assets, and it's probably going to be either Paul, Wiggins, one of those two, and then a Moody or a Looney. Think about it that way. So that's how you get to the steep asking price, $36 million. For the Bulls may be ready to rebuild after trading Alex Caruso to Oklahoma City Thunder for Josh Giddey. They also could lose DeMar DeRozan in the free agency. LaVine's owed $89 million over the next 2 seasons and has $49 million in 26-27. The two-time All-Star only played 25 games last season due to a foot injury, 20 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. $90 million over 2 seasons is a lot of money. So again, if we make that happen, we have to match. So it would have to be $48 million in 2026, meaning he's owed basically $40 million this upcoming season. So our second apron, 189, 178. These three aren't going to be there if Zach LaVine is with the team. So to match $40 million, again, you can have Chris Paul opt in his contract and then send him off to Chicago. Maybe GP2 becomes a casualty at that point then, because it helps you get to 9. Could be Looney. That puts you at $38 million. Could be potentially Moody. I don't see Kuminga going for LaVine. That would be a terrible trade. And you're going to have to make something else happen there. Or, again, Chris Paul walks, and then you have Wiggins, $26 million. And then may have to be GP2 at that makes you at 35 million, and Looney, that puts you a bit over, or maybe Moody, that puts you at 40. It would be GP2, Wiggins, and Moody puts you basically at 40 million. So you'd have to work with it to make it happen. Again, that's a lot of money for someone who has 2 years left on their deal and is injury prone. Yes, as a proven scorer when he's out on the floor. Personally, I'd rather get DeMar DeRozan in free agency. He's a bit older than Zach LaVine, yes, but is durable, healthy, scores, and would be a good fit in our offense. Chris Paul rumor. So let's deal with that. Clippers, Spurs, Suns, contract if Warriors point guard hits free agency. Mark Stein reports, Paul would interest the LA Clippers if he becomes an unrestricted free agent, as Russell Westbrook's future remains uncertain despite picking up a $4 million option to return to this team on Saturday. The Spurs and Suns believe that interest. Played with the Suns already. Played with the Clippers already. Spurs would be new. Suns, they have very little cap room. We saw that they were missing a point guard this year. With CP3 not there, really fell on Booker to be a point guard. He's more of a shooter, scoring guard, and they didn't have much offense facilitated. And to be able to get the ball to Booker, get the ball to Durant, they need some help. Spurs, who they got? Wemby, he'd be a great role model for that team. Be able to step in, do pick and roll with Wemby, really help out. Suns, I should say this, playoff team, crash out in the first round, so they're trying to improve themselves. Spurs, they're on the rebuilding. Maybe bubble team next year, depending how quick they are, but they were literally one of the worst teams this year. They're probably 2-3 years away from being a bubble contention. And then the Clippers, of course, crashed out of the playoffs as well. Russell Westbrook, is he the point guard for them? Is he the backup point guard? Potentially they use Russell in a trade, get somebody back. Maybe they get some draft picks, and they can get CP3 to be more a traditional point guard for them. Back to what he was when it was Lob City. For the Spurs to get Chris Paul, if they wanted to make that trade, I know I'm very off over the place today. I'm just trying to give you information. For the Spurs, they pick up Chris Paul for agency. 24-25, you can see they have plenty of cap space. They could sign him outright and give him a decent money. Does Chris Paul want to leave California? His family lives in LA. He was able to fly back and forth throughout the season. San Antonio, LA is a tougher flight. Wouldn't be able to do that, say, the night before the game, things like that. Clippers take out the $48 million for Paul George, so 174 minus 48, so 175 minus 50 is 125. They want to re-sign Paul. They're going to have talks. Maybe they give him a bit more, a little bit less than Kawhi. Kind of puts you there. But if Paul George walks away, goes to the Orlando Magic, 76ers, then they have plenty of room to sign Chris Paul. For Klay Thompson, if he doesn't stay with the Warriors, LeBron James is willing to take a $20 million pay cut in order to secure the full mid-level exception. LeBron may go year-to-year contract versus multi-year, but honestly, the multi-year contract is always 1 year guaranteed, 1 year play option. Honestly, basically the same thing. Klay Thompson and Jonas Valanciunas appear to be the most realistic targets. Jonas to be next to AD, and of course Klay on the perimeter. We did a whole breakdown for that last episode. You can take it down. But Klay would be a great three-point shooter. Him and Reeves on each side, LeBron and AD, and then you have a fifth guy on the court. Would be pretty deadly offense. Unfortunately, as well, on the opposite side, if you're a Lakers fan, Reeves is streaky. Klay can be streaky. So you may have some games where you go 3 for 18 from three-point. So a lot of this will depend on Paul George. He's kind of the X factor that falls. Other free agents will see where he doesn't go, because then there's more money, and other teams will say, hey, we missed out on Paul George. We want to go get somebody. So let's spend some money to get a player, maybe overpay. Warriors, they can't overpay. We're basically capped here again. Chris Paul, if he opts in, we opt him in the $30 million. We're at 174. If not, we're at the 144. But still, it'll be a bit tough for us to do anything, because we're at the second apron. And these three right here, it's pretty odds. We'll never see this happen again on the basketball court unless it's an all-star, something drastic happens, or maybe they do a one-day contract and they do something. But Sacramento game, play-in was the last time it feels like we saw Klay, Dre, and Steph together. Comment your thoughts. Let me know what you thought or what you think, what we're talking about, if we're missing anything. And of course, come to the live watch party. We'll hang out together and live it in a couple hours. Bye, y'all.